Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nexentora here and welcome back to another video. Now if you are new here, please make sure you like and subscribe because it does mean to me a lot, all of the support that everyone's been showing me. Now in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys some of the best live cockpits in my opinion in infinite flight. And I've got a few aircraft up my sleeve to show you all. Now I think it's only fair if we start off with the A330 Neo because this aircraft is amazing. So we're still at Sao Paulo. For some reason, and I'm going to show you guys again some of the best cockpits. So in my opinion, I think there's a large amount of aircraft in infinite flight which have phenomenal interior cockpits, and one of them being this amazing A330 Neo. Now I'm not too sure if any of the buttons work, so we're going to do a usual button check. They don't, but the lights don't either. So even though they don't work, I think this cockpit in general is just quality on such a great looking aircraft as well. Just look how slick this aircraft is. It looks amazing. But I just think this is a great cockpit, to be honest. So we got, all of this all works, blah, blah, blah. It's a live cockpit. And I just think it's a really good job was done when this cockpit was made in infinite flight. Now, the next aircraft we're going to go to is a bit of a weird one. We're going to the A10. Now, if I remember correctly, this might have potentially even been one of the first cockpits that was made live in infinite flight. I can't quite remember whether this was before or after the TBM and the X-Cub, but this is, funny enough, believe it or not, it's a live cockpit, and you can see that all of the different switches move. You get a much better view of this cockpit, to be honest, when it's in flight and everything's working. So we're going to go in short final mode. And you can actually see down here, so I know it's a bit blurry and everything, but you can, funny enough, you can just see how all of this, you got that. And this is pretty much one of the best cockpits, I think, in infinite flight by a long way. I mean, it's a slow-moving aircraft, the A10. It's an air-to-ground sort of aircraft, if I'm not mistaken, but it's just an amazing plane. Now, the cockpit is the main bit we're looking at, of course, and I just think it really outclasses quite a lot of the cockpits here in infinite flight, because it's just such a nice old school cockpit. Sort of reminds me of the Cessna cockpit, but just maybe a little bit better, in my opinion. So again, second on the list we got the A10, and it is a great aircraft, whatever you say, and not much can really change my mind on that. So we're just going inverted for the fun of it there. And again, you can just see how all of these little things just move about, rate per minute and temperature, etc., whilst doing all of these cool stuff. So again, if you disagree with me, I still honestly do think that the A10 is one of the best cockpits in infinite flight. Now, the next thing on our list, we're going back to the Boeings. Now, when this cockpit first came out, I was like, whoa. Like, I had no idea what to say because it was a phenomenal cockpit. I was so excited that the this cockpit got a live cockpit. It was a bit like the Airbus ones, but we're in the Boeing 737 now. It's just so unique. The 737 cockpit, if you ask me now, I'm pretty sure quite a few of these switches work, or I'm going to look a bit stupid. I look stupid. Passengers. No, okay, so none of them do work. Okay, but that's alright, because if I do think I'm right, TCAS is off. So this cockpit is great because when it first came out, I was very excited. Now that's a really poor reason actually, but it's just a really good version of the live copy. You got the flaps thing coming down, and I think it's a really nice cockpit if you want to do a flight without using the HUD. So we'll just go short final, for example, here. It's quite a nice one to be using for an aircraft with just this bit of the live cockpit. You can see how well we're doing all right here. We're just going to have to poke up our flare a little bit. So not just the aircraft, but the cockpit as well are really nice, and we are doing a float. I'm going to have to use our rudder a bit. Oh, that was bumpy. But in general, it is a lovely cockpit to be using if you are playing infinite flight and you are trying to play it well. It's a great little aircraft, the 737, so I think the 737 cockpit here is a perfect match for that. The autopilot looks great in general, even when you look out the back, the small details are there all in the back and all around this cockpit. So I think this is definitely, again, one of the best cockpits in infinite flight. Let me know whether you think it's better than the A330 cockpit we looked at. I don't know if it is, but I do know a cockpit which I prefer over it, and that is with the Boeing 777s. Now, when the 777s got their rework back in 2020, it was one of the biggest updates, and I stand by it still, probably one of the best updates this flight simulators had. But this cockpit, is just so unique. Now I do know that the seatbelt things work on this cockpit, as I learned in a previous video, but the lights do not. So this cockpit is already better for the fact that it's got moving seatbelt signs, if you ask me. So TCAS is off. I'm pretty sure TCAS is the system which shows the other planes on your map. I might be wrong, someone would have to let me know. But I think that the fact that they've got the checklists and all that down there, they haven't really missed much in this cockpit. I mean, it's a shame it's not interactive, but all in all, Airfoot Flight did not miss much by making this cockpit. They've even got some good detail with the back jump seats. So maybe there we go, we're in the back of the cockpit. And you can just see that they have got all of the lovely details here from even the back of the cockpit, which make it look so great in comparison to many of the other cockpits we get in Airfoot Flight. I'm literally fully zoomed in here, and the resolution on all of the cockpit is still really, really good. So if you're asking me, this is a great cockpit in Infinite Flight. Now, the next aircraft we'd like to look at, we have time for 2 aircraft. And do you know what? A few honourable mentions will be the Airbus family. So we've got the A320 and the A220s. But we're going to pop down to a general aviation aircraft. I don't do this very often. Very rarely do I give general aviation aircraft credit in Infinite Flight, because personally I don't really like it that much. But the TBM does have a really good cockpit in Infinite Flight in it. So it's rather realistic. It's a great cockpit just to be flying in general. So if we go on to short final, you can just see how nice it is, and I'm pretty sure that's our map there. But it's just a lovely little working cockpit to have in general. I remember I used to fly this aircraft quite a bit on Microsoft Flight Simulator. It looks like none of the buttons are working for us though. And then it also has got the little cabin, and I'm going to sort of count it as the cabin, why not? The cabin can also be part of our little aircraft. You can just see from the back here, where you can still see the cockpit, how nice of a little aircraft this really is. I'm going to bring our flaps up as well. So I think for interiors as well, the TBM 930 has some of the best features here in Infinite Flight Mobile Flight Simulator. We are going to need our cockpit view. So yeah, I think it's a shame the bottom screens aren't working, but not all the screens do work in Infinite Flight. But in general, I think this is again a fabulous cockpit in comparison to some of the others that we have here in Infinite Flight. Now we'll just pop over down here to takeoff, and you can just see we've got like the little levelers, the altitude stuff, even though it's on the main one. And we've just got so many great features on this cockpit. Now, unfortunately, not all the buttons work, and there are no seatbelt buttons, etc. But I think all in all, it's a great cockpit, and it did deserve a shout out. Just like the X-Cub one, the X-Cub also has a decent cockpit, even though I'm not really a fan of that aircraft at all, whereas the X-Cub and that one. So when the X-Cub first came out, everyone flew it for a few days, and now no one flies it. It was a bit like that with the F-18. But everyone's a bit like that in general, and you can just see this is a great cockpit, and I'm pretty sure it does have the buttons that move. There we go, so we do see the buttons moving. So it has got a few cool features like that, avionics, so they have not forgotten so to like add all the little stuff. So that's not even just, it's just the aircraft in general. You got the mixture switch, which is, there you go. So this again is a great cockpit in Infinite Flight, and it's one that couldn't really miss out my lack of appreciation. So the X-Cub cockpit is probably one of the best as well in the Mobile Flight Simulator. Now, if you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like and subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you all in my next video. Good night.
Find your way.